All right, today we're going to talk about destructive behavior patterns. This is the Manhood series video part 3. I got my iPad with my notes. I'm going to be reading from here and also writing on the board like I normally do. I was thinking earlier today, as I record these videos on manhood, they give me a chance to reflect on my inner thoughts about these topics and also strategize how to put these in sequence to where they make sense to you. So I'm pretty much teaching myself as well as teaching you as I do these. So I'm very grateful to be able to do this. As a maturing, self-actualizing man, it is your responsibility to identify and root out any behavior that inhibits you from achieving your potential and creating the life you desire. We all have destructive tendencies and non-productive habit patterns. Everyone has them, but not everyone allows themselves to be controlled by them. How do I define destructive habit patterns? I wrote 2 definitions here that I made up for you. Number 1, any habit in your behavior that cause harm to yourself and other people. So any habit in your behavior that causes harm to yourself and other people is a destructive behavior pattern. Number 2, any habit that moves you away from your individual or collective goals. Individual goals, of course, is goals you set for yourself. Collective goals is goals you have between yourself and other people, which means family goals, work goals, or business goals between you and your team. That's a collective goal. So any habit that moves you away from your individual or collective goals is a destructive habit pattern and something you want to identify and root out of your life. To identify an unconscious behavior like a habit, you have to work backwards. So the unconscious behavior or the habit is the cause of and result in your life. So to work backwards, you have to go to the result, which is the effect, and trace it back to its cause, which is the habit, and that allows you to identify whatever it is, and then you can deal with it at that point. For example, let's say you're not where you want to be professionally in your career, and you're not sure why. There is definitely habits in place unconsciously that are causing that result in your life. So you may say, okay, I'm not where I want to be in my life. I'm being in my career. I'm being overlooked for promotions. I'm being overlooked for this and that, whatever. That's the effect. The cause may be traced back to your attitude on your job. It may be traced back to you being late at your job. It may be traced back to low performance when you are on the job. It may be traced back to taking too many breaks. It may be traced back to working unproductively, working on low priority activities when you're at work, which causes low performance, which causes you the result of you not being promoted. Let me give you some examples of how I've done this in my own life. So 2 examples I wrote down here. 2 of my past and present destructive behaviors. Number 1, hurting people with words. This was something I was completely unaware of. I did not know. It was something I did as a defense mechanism and also because I was good at it. And it became my normal way of talking and responding to people and showing up in the world. But I didn't realize the results that was getting me. A lot of people didn't like me. I would hurt a lot of people. A lot of people's self-esteem was affected by things that I said. How I discovered this is, first of all, maturity. But second of all, I started to see patterns in how people describe me. Is if a few people say something, not a big deal. But if there becomes a pattern in how people describe you, and they label you in ways you treat them, how you talk, how you speak, how you act, you want to pay attention to what they're saying, because everybody can't be making things up. Everybody can't be lying on you. Multiple people are describing you the same way for a reason. There's some kind of pattern in your behavior that you're not seeing that they are. So you have to begin to listen to that and self-examine so you can change that. And that's what I did for the harming people with words pattern that I had. So to this day, it's been maybe 10, 15 years. I've worked on that. Now I filter my words better. I've learned to get my point across without being harmful, without being so harmful with my words. I've learned to practice empathy, which means to put myself in other people's position that I'm speaking to, so that I can filter my words through that filter of empathy before I say certain things to them. Now, if you speak to someone and you use empathy as a filter, you won't say certain things. And if you do say certain things, you'll say them in a certain way that they won't come out the same way, with the same intention, with the same harmful way of affecting them, etc. Number 2 on my past and present destructive behaviors. Running from relationship issues instead of trying harder to understand my shortcomings as a man and fixing them the best way I could at that time. This led me to a place of deep regret after those relationships ended. So my second one was running from relationship issues. I didn't have the maturity enough to understand the flaws that I had within myself as a man and to work on those. I didn't have the maturity and self-awareness to recognize the flaws in myself as a man and to put a plan in place to work on those. It was all about blame. What is the other person doing? If they're not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. If they're not going to change, I'm not going to change. That is a sign of lack of maturity. That is a sign of a person that's not a leader. Leaders act first. Leaders act first. They don't wait on other people to do things before they do things. You don't wait on somebody else to do right before you do right. That's not a leader. Men should be leaders. We lead. So that was my second flaw there. The first one I said was hurting people with words. The second one was running from relationship issues instead of standing tall and fixing what I could as a man. Let me give you some examples of other people's destructive behavior patterns that I've seen throughout my journey. Number 1, substance abuse. Abusing things like alcohol, drugs, or even white sugar. Number 2, sex. Becoming a slave to sexual urges. Number 3, an inability to communicate properly. This includes speaking up for oneself and learning to listen well. Communication is both speaking and listening, but primarily it's listening well. Number 4, not prioritizing health. Not prioritizing health leads to early death for thousands of people every year and unnecessary diseases such as type 2 diabetes and some forms of cancer. That's a big one. Destructive behavior that I've seen other people do, and also at times myself, is not prioritizing health. Number 5, people pleasing. Wanting everyone to like and approve of you. This is a very destructive behavior. There's no way you can please everybody. There's no way everybody is going to like you no matter what you do. If everybody likes you, you're doing something wrong. You're going to be compromising some type of morality. You're going to be suffocating or minimizing your own desires, wants, and uniqueness in life. There's no way everybody can like the uniqueness of who you are, and that's okay. So those were 5 destructive behaviors I've seen in other people, and sometimes that I practice myself. So now let me tell you how to get rid of destructive behaviors. Number 1, be honest and identify them. Be honest and identify them. How you identify them is what I explained in an example in the beginning about your career. You have to look at the result, trace it back to the destructive habit pattern that's causing the result, and then you do these 5 steps. So the first one is be honest and identify them. Number 2 is know your triggers. Your triggers are the signals in your environment that cause you to perform the habit. So a trigger, if you are an alcoholic or you have trouble with alcoholism, the trigger may be a bottle of wine or a bottle of alcohol on your counter or in your cupboard or wherever you keep it. That's a trigger for you. A trigger for you may be stress at work. A trigger for you may be relationship stress, or you having an argument with your spouse. Removing triggers from your environment are easier said than done. Sometimes, like not buying the drink or bottle of wine can be easy, but if a person you live with is your trigger, now you got problems. It's not as easy as to remove. It's not as easy to remove them from your life, but it may be a necessary thing you have to work on. You can also learn to reframe how you take things from them to help mitigate that stressful trigger. Because stress starts in your head anyway. It's not what people do, it's how you respond to what people do. But that's another video. All right, so how to get rid of destructive behaviors. Number 1 is be honest and identify them. Number 2 is know your triggers, whether it be environmentally or inside of you. Number 3 is remove those triggers, which I just touched on. Number 4 is replace those triggers with something else. So back to the alcohol example, if you're going to remove the wine or the beer or the liquor from your home so you can't engage in that when you're triggered, you have to replace it with something else, some other coping mechanism, and make that your new habit. So it goes from a destructive habit pattern to a more positive, helpful habit pattern. Number 5, last one. Be gentle with yourself as you break the cycle. The cause and effect relationship between a trigger and a performance of a habit is a constant loop that's been ingrained in your brain and in your nervous system. That's why it's very hard to break. This is scientifically proven. So with that being said, you're a human being. Be gentle with yourself. You may relapse at times, but the key is not giving up. The key is not giving up, and the key is practicing those other 5 things that I said. You have to fix your environment, set your environment up for success so you won't perform those habits. You have to remain positive, remain gentle with yourself as you work through the process, and you have to give yourself time. Give yourself time to change. You don't develop habits overnight, and you don't break them overnight. You ease yourself into them, and you take it as you go. Throughout this video, if you heard squeaking noises or something hitting the counter, because that noise was you, my son, Tony Rogers, moving around right next to me as I record this video. So what I did about halfway through was put you in the other room, let you do your thing in the other room, make all the noise you want. Now I'm going to go get you right now, and that's why I was talking fast. If I was talking fast, I'm sorry. Tony, I love you. See you.